Illegal?
It's completely unlawful in international law.
Inhuman?
The decisions this government is making that I think are just cruel and inhumane.
Insane.
We needed at least 200 return agreements with different countries before we even attempted something like this.
These are the interesting times. Hello everyone, my name is Matt Johnston and welcome to the Wednesday Interesting Times, which is a show that likes to take a sideways swipe at politics right here in the UK. And we take a story and look a bit deeper into it. Sunday's show looked at Gary Lineker and his tweet, and it's a story that is seriously gaining a lot of traction. The news programs, the newspapers all seem to offer their thoughts. Is this free speech? Can Gary Lineker sue or will he be fired? Politicians were only too happy to jump in. Here is Leader of the House of Commons, Penny, it's all in the delivery Mordaunt.
Labour are borrowing from the Gary Lineker playbook. They are a party of goal hangers and the occasional left-wing striker, hanging around the goal mouth.
Oh God, please make it stop. And of course, social media, where Daily Mail commentator and right-wing mountain man Peter Hitchens tweeted, "Nobody seems to know one crucial fact," which is never a good start to the tweet. Like nobody drinks from the toilet bowl, or nobody shaves their balls with a blindfold. But Peter doubled down on this and printed an article in Daily Mail headed, "End this crude smear against conservatives. Hitler's Nazis were left-wing racists." A bold argument which, much like Peter, starts to unravel as you work, and I mean work, your way through it. But you know, that's not what's important, and neither is Mordor, or I'm afraid to say Ian. He's right when he said this.
Ian Wright, the former Arsenal and Crystal Palace and England striker, he has come out and said that he will not be taking part in Match of the Day tomorrow night.
Oh, Gary Lineker, who is, unsurprisingly, returning to host that football show he does. Glad to see the BBC has come to its senses. But more importantly,
my concern is that really the focus on this is being used by the government both to find someone to blame and also to distract from their own serious failures on policies.
And
on BBC One, the main news bulletins on BBC One, the 6 o'clock and the 10 o'clock, were going with the Gary Lineker story rather than analysis of the government policy.
And even the comments section on my last YouTube video, because while we were all talking about tweets, football, impartiality, which are all important, the government is pushing through the illegal migrant bill, which does exactly what it says on the title. It's a bill about migrants that is illegal. The bill passed through its second reading on Monday in the House of Commons with a majority of 62. No Conservative MP opposed it. Just keep that in mind. No Conservative MP opposed it. So what's in the bill? In a nutshell, the bill allows the government to return those who enter the country illegally either to their own country, if it's safe to do so, or to a third safe country. And if that sounds familiar, well...
Today's statement is Groundhog Day. The Home Secretary has said anyone who arrives illegally will be deemed inadmissible and either returned to the country they arrived from or a safe third country. Only that wasn't this Home Secretary, it was the last one. And that wasn't this bill, it was the last one.
Yes, this was the Nationality and Borders Act brought in by Priti Patel last year, which placed those making the crossing into two groups. Group 1, genuine asylum seekers that presented themselves to authorities as soon as they landed in the UK. And Group 2, everyone else. And this followed on from the UK and Rwanda Migration and Economic Development Partnership, which was introduced in April and was supposed to allow the UK the right to fly legal asylum seekers to Rwanda.
I would love to be having a front page of the Telegraph with a plane taking off to Rwanda. That's my dream.
Worth mentioning that it's been nearly a year, it's cost £120 million, and not one single asylum seeker has been flown to Rwanda. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the UNHCR, Rwanda lacks the capacity to provide the protection that asylum seekers and refugees need, as the majority live in camps with limited access to economic opportunities. Rwanda's worrisome human rights record also raises serious questions about the deal. These concerns caused the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, to temporarily halt the flights leaving London for Kigali. And that's where we currently are. The new illegal bill, let's just call it what it is, kind of cuts to the chase and has everybody in one group, a group that can be deported if they meet 4 criteria. Number 1, entered in breach of normal immigration laws. Number 2, entered or arrived in the UK on or after 7th of March 2023. That's right, they managed to make it shittier by making it retroactive. Point number 3, travel through a safe third country. And point number 4, requires leave to enter or remain but does not have it. The Home Secretary then can, under this new bill, remove anyone who qualifies. But to where? That's the question. There are 57 countries that can be deemed as safe for a person to be removed to. We have an agreement with 1. Rwanda. We have 60,000 likely to be making the crossing this year. Rwanda has the capacity for 200 and has been questioned by the UK on its human rights records as late as 2021. Then there is the law that allows the government to detain refugees for up to 28 days without trial and bail. And this will apply to everyone. So yes, to my American friends, they said we're about 5 years behind you, and we're currently on the putting children in a cage stage. After 28 days, bail can be granted, but there is no legal requirement to do so. However, habeas corpus, the ancient common law that means a person cannot be detained indefinitely without trial or release, is still in effect. So the most humane part of this bill is one that dates back to the 12th century, where serfdom, public execution and heads on spikes were rampant. But this would simply mean that people would then be released into society with no support, unlikely creating homelessness on a massive scale. And yes, we are going to talk about Brexit, because before Brexit, we had signed up to something called the Dublin Regulation, which stated you had to claim asylum in the first EU country you entered. But we left that when we Brexited and didn't get any replacement mechanism in place because of this. And an election he wanted to win by getting Brexit done. And apparently we weren't the only country with borders. The other parts of this agreement don't exactly make for more comfortable reading. The bill will also disqualify potential victims of slavery or human trafficking from protection from removal, modern slavery support and any requirement to be granted leave. Put simply, if you've been brought into the UK either through intimidation or deception and then are forced to work in a brothel, whereas before you could be given leave to stay allowing you to deal with your physical and psychological trauma, that will no longer be the case. Meaning, being rescued from a brothel where you were being abused by 30 men a day could only potentially be the start of your problems. Wait, sorry, I know it's been tough, but we're not quite done. Couple more points. The bill does allow a person to challenge their removal by arguing that there would be a real risk of serious and irreversible harm if they were to be sent to their territory specified in a removal notice. They will have a week to bring such a claim from their place of detention, which is great, except no formal process is established to do this, as no Home Office asylum interview will take place, so you don't even get to plead your case. All other legal challenges to removal, including those on human rights grounds, would only be considered by the UK courts after a person's removal from the UK. And anyone who enters the UK illegally, bearing in mind there are no legal routes, whether they are a genuine asylum seeker or not, will never be allowed to apply for citizenship of this country. And that would include their UK-born children, if they have any. That is pretty much all of it. And Suella Braverman was concerned about a tweet. And again, a reminder that no Conservative MP voted against this. The bill passed its second reading on Monday evening, not only because of 309 Conservative MPs, but also 4 independent MPs. We have Andrew Bridgen, ex-Conservative MP, thrown out of the party for anti-vax conspiracy theories. Julian Knights, ex-Conservative MP, thrown out of the party for sexual assault allegations. Rob Roberts, ex-Conservative MP, kicked out of the party for sexual misconduct. And David Warburton, an ex-Conservative MP, kicked out of the party for accepting a £150,000 loan from a Seychelles business company owned by a Russian oligarch and failing to declare it. What was that about playing by the rules? But this extraordinary league of excrement aren't the only ones backing this. Europe's far-right political parties and candidates have been quick to jump on this. There has been praise from Italian far-right leader Matteo Salvini, retweeted a tweet by Sunak. If you arrive illegally in the UK, you can't claim asylum. Also, Eric Zemmour, the French far-right commentator and proponent of the Great Replacement theory that Muslim immigrants are replacing native Europeans. Congratulations to the British Prime Minister who, unlike Macron's government, has chosen to protect his people against submersion by migrants. And bravo, wrote the Alternative für Deutschland party on social media. Way to go. Hashtag Gary Lineker was right. Thankfully, there's also been people voicing their opposition and concerns. Labour's Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has called it a trafficker's charter that will lock up children. Bishop of York Justin Welby has described it as cruelty without purpose. UNHCR have stated the bill would be a clear breach of the Refugee Convention and would undermine a long-standing humanitarian tradition of which the British people are rightly proud. And Amnesty International have described this as a shocking new low, which strangely leaves me with a comforting feeling that this Conservative government still have a little bit in the way of wiggle room in the shocking department. Braverman's response to this has been pathetic.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I will not be hectored by out-of-touch lefties.
So, here is lefty, out-of-touch Conservative ex-Prime Minister and ex-Home Secretary Theresa May, who stood up in the House of Commons to say this.
And anybody who thinks that this bill will deal with the issue of illegal migration once and for all is wrong.
And it's not like this government weren't warned of this. In November 2019, a Parliamentarian Foreign Affairs Committee released a report on irregular migration, warning of an increase in dangerous channel crossings. A policy that focuses exclusively on closing borders will drive migrants to take more dangerous routes and push them into the hands of criminal groups. The report called for more ambitious resettlement schemes and expanded legal pathways to applying for asylum from outside the UK. These recommendations and others have been repeated over the last 3.5 years by the UNHCR, the United Nations Refugee Agency, the Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, ICIBI, Calais MPs, the French President and the House of Lords, and they have all been either ignored or rejected. Why? Because this is about ideology, not practicality. Okay, I'm repeating myself here, but I think it's worth using this phrase again. Once you have eliminated the rational, what you have left, no matter how ridiculous, must be Conservative Party policy. Rishi Sunak in January made stopping the boats one of his 5 key pledges. In February, newly elected Deputy Party Chairman of the Conservative Party, Lee Anderson, said this.
The big thing in 2019, there was 3 things that won us the election. It was nothing to do with me. It was Brexit, it was Boris, it was Corbyn. And it was as simple as that. Those 3 things together was a great campaign. Great ingredients. At the next election, we haven't got those 3 things. So we're going to have to think of something else. It'll probably be a mixture of culture wars.
And that's it. Nothing to do with stopping the boats, illegal immigration, or any other right-wing soundbite. Just a bunch of bastard politicians that saw that their party was facing political annihilation at the next election and wanted to claw back a few points in the polls. And that is the real worry, because all of these asylum seekers, sex-trafficked women and tortured refugees are just, in the words of Conservative ex-Home Secretary,
so the victims of modern slavery, if you like, will be collateral damage.
Which begs the question, what are they likely to do when this doesn't work? And it won't work. What then? Something more extreme, more scapegoating of lawyers, opposition MPs and sports presenters? As the late great Tony Benn famously once said, the way a government treats refugees is very instructive because it shows you how they would treat the rest of us if they thought they could get away with it. Please, let's not let them get away with it. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate it's been a bit light on last, but I felt the message was more important than the mirth. If you've appreciated this video, then please like, subscribe and hit all the notifications bell, and I'll see you all Sunday. Okay, I'll leave you with a bit of a positive. The latest polls put the Tories still 20 points behind, which makes sense as immigration isn't really that much of a priority for people, not when you consider the chronic underfunding of the NHS and the cost of living crisis. So look at it this way, every day and every hour, there's less and less time with this lot in power. Take care.